Welcome back, crew. And thank you for joining us for our 100th video. And this one can become one that's a little special for me. We're going to be reviewing the Mutants and Masterminds 3E system. I realized as I was preparing some of my Champions material, I'd never done a review of Mutants and Masterminds. And for those who don't know, Mutants and Masterminds was one of my first videos, and it's kind of what spawned this channel, and for lack of a better word of it. Before I branched out and played Mutants and Masterminds, I've been mostly just playing 5e or Star Wars 5e and hadn't really kind of branched out of that bubble. I played a little bit of 3.5 and Pathfinder way back in the day, but I was more of a sort of a beer and pretzels guy there. Didn't really get too deep into those systems, but 5e was the first major one I got into and just kind of got sucked into the world of making 5e work for everything. But 5e was never a really good system for superheroes, at least in my opinion. So with that, I kind of started searching systems out, and Mutants and Masterminds was often the most recommended, and it's what I kind of took a dive into and spawned my love of learning new systems. So definitely take this review with a bit of salt because this is definitely what I'm biased for. Definitely a system that's kind of near my heart there. But yeah, let's get into it. So we're going to use our usual review style, kind of roses, things we like about the system, buds, things we're excited for with the system, and thorns, things we just may not care for with the system. Stole it from NADPODs, I always say. And definitely, if you haven't, check out our Mutants and Masterminds playlist. We've got a couple of actual plays there. We're gonna have another one coming soon. We go over how to build Homelander using the system, so why you should be playing Mutants and Masterminds, and a couple other videos too. I'm blanking on now. But let's dive into it. And one of the biggest things that I loved about this system, and you probably heard me mention this in different reviews, it spawned my love for classless systems, classless and levelless systems, but definitely classless. I love how customizable it is. I love how you can just take a concept and run with it. If you want to be basic and build Cyclops, you can go build Cyclops. But if you want to build a wacky, off the wall character that shouldn't work, typically with the way the power system works in this, you've got so much versatility, so much flexibility. You can go through and build a time traveling, dimension hopping mutant if you want to. Actually, quite easily. That's a couple, just two powers there. And just stat them out and make them exactly the way you imagine them being. And I think that's amazing. A lot of times, games will say that flavor is free. I hear it a lot with 5e and a little bit of Pathfinder sometimes too. But with Mutants and Masterminds, you can go through and make mechanics pretty much one to one match your flavor without too much of a headache. So that's really one of the biggest roses I could give to this system, and I want more games to do classless. Shout out to Symbaroum and some of the recent ones we played there. Champions too. Champions, we're playing that. That's our game of the month for May. That's a classless system. I just love how much control that gives you. I love how Mutants and Masterminds allows you to build any concept you're thinking of and just really flesh it out and bring it to the page. So shout outs to them for that one. That's a huge rose for me. Another big one too, with this side is with how broad and flexible the powers are and how many different concepts you can build. At least in my experience, the system flows well. There's definitely a steep learning curve, but once you get over that learning curve, the system, like everything kind of flows in and makes sense once you get kind of how to make attacks, how to you'll hits and toughness and how everything works on that side. The system flows, and it makes it easy for players to kind of follow along. One of the big things I've heard from my players is that making a character can be a pain, but once you're in the game, once you have your character and understand how everything rolls, it's super simple. Everything flows, and it's kind of a good game for keeping everything kind of quickly moving. Once you get past it, especially if you have a virtual tabletop, that helps you do some of the math too. Because one of the big things they do here, and I like this too, I've even brought this backwards in some of my games that don't have it, is the degrees of success. I like how that flows because, especially sometimes when you just get that huge number on your dice, it's fun to have extra things that pile on rather than just typical success. And this system really reflects that. Kind of similar in certain ways to how Pathfinder handles their crit system, even expanded on that with their 5 degrees of success. So, really a big piece for me there. Just flows well and it's rewarding in its play, I feel like. Also, along with that, another big rose for me is how they handle hero points. I know a lot of systems have something similar to this, but I like how you can do both power stunts, so things that are usually outside your wheelhouse a little bit, but also I love how much creative control it can give players over a scene with spending a hero point to give kind of bring something into life that may enhance the plot of the story. And I love when players have tools to kind of not take the wheel, but at least nudge the wheel in the direction they want to go at, and really make that storytelling collaborative. And that's definitely one of my favorite pieces. It's one of the things I've brought to certain other games that will flow well with. So definitely a rose there too. Uh, and kind of along with that too, this kind of flows in. It works. Mutants Masterminds is actually, I know it's a real crunch heavy up front, but once you get into it, it works really well for a narrative style of play. I usually theater of the mind it just due to how fast and how much movement you can have for most characters, I'll say. But once you kind of get the character built, the system flows well with a quick paced, almost like a system light a little bit, because you've got your characters, you know your roles. It's all a D20 system, another roles for that. You just roll that D20 and everything is determined from that. You've got your skills and you can utilize them, and especially with how broad the powers are and kind of how varied teams can be in their composition, you can have sweeping effects and just really tell some cool stories with it. So that's definitely another huge rose there because it's fun when you get in. And most of the ones I put on, yeah, I think all the ones unfortunately I put on YouTube were more kind of played for lighthearted effect. It was one of my favorite one shots to do when we either didn't have a game going or I just wanted to kind of go in and blow off narrative steam and just have some fun with the crew. But it works really well for some more serious stories too. And that was my first campaign. I ran like a little mini, I think, 5 session campaign with it, and we had a blast with it. So those are kind of my roses. Overall, I can't recommend this game enough. This is definitely one I can. And this isn't like a true rose for the system, but a rose for me is it really got me interested in what other systems could do and broke me out of the D&D 5e bubble. And for that, I'm forever grateful. But let's go into some buds. My biggest bud for this one is I do want to do another campaign. One thing I've realized, I've tried to make my own little superhero universe, but it was basically not Marvel. So I want to do an X-Men campaign using either probably Mutants and Masterminds on that side, kind of showing off what the system can do. Definitely, when I don't know when this will be streamed. It'll be on my channel sometime. I'm not sure when. Probably around the holidays when I've got more free time for my real job. But stay tuned for that one because yeah, I love this system and I think it'd be fun to throw a little X-Men spin in the universe that I kind of mirrors what I was going for without just be basically stealing and tweaking things to make it not Marvel. So keep tuned on that side. That's kind of the major but I've played a lot of Mutants Masterminds, not as much lately, unfortunately, as I'd like. But this is it's a great system. There's so much you can do with it. And one of the things I didn't even mention this too. The system for another rose, very versatile. You can do superheroes with this, but if you want to have a low-powered like engine game, you could do that. You could have like a low-powered real people in real life type situation. If you wanted with some of the high powers, I'm pretty sure me and one of my players are talking about you can build Dragon Ball Z using mutants and masterminds fairly easily, I feel like. So there's just so much you could do with this system. It's a superhero system, but this is an engine you could run to tell a lot of different stories. So really take that into effect, and especially as you're reading through, it can be overwhelming at first, but once you get a handle of it, you can really do whatever you want using the framework that Mutants and Masterminds provides, and utilizing the skills and power system that the system goes over. So definitely, it's got a rose in the bud there. I don't know if we'll ever get this one at the table, but me and one of my players did talk pretty heavily about doing a DVZ game. So maybe one day that'll come. So some thorns. The biggest one, and I'll say this is I love this system, but this is a true thorn. Uh, it is a steep learning curve in character creation, especially your first time can be daunting and hard, and I don't want to say painful, but it could be it could be an effort. I've even my first time, I struggled quite a bit, a little bit to kind of figure out all the different pieces. Shout outs to the Mutants and Masterminds Discord, super helpful, super friendly. If you ever want to pick up the system, go to that page. Because that they're definitely willing to help out and answer any of the questions. Definitely read the book a little bit first. Don't be that guy. But if you've read the book and are confused, go ask them. They'll be more than happy to help you out there. Two other pieces too with that, with kind of building your own character. Really, that first time is the hardest, but once you get over that, it is much easier each time. Mutants and Masterminds is one of the few games where I usually do a live session with whoever's building a new PC. Because it's usually easier. Usually with most games, I'll just kind of like start my Discord up and say, "Hey, building a PC, ask me any questions." Mutants and Masterminds, I found it best just to kind of have a live call of like, "Okay, this is how we do it." Just because it helps alleviate some of that frustration and makes it easier for people to jump into the system. Also, all that though, I do want to make a big recommendation. I'm not sure if they sell the other one anymore, but get the deluxe copy. You can see I've got that one behind me. The deluxe edition of Mutants and Masterminds 3E includes both sample heroes as well as some walkthroughs too that the regular edition didn't have. It makes it a lot easier. A couple of my players use the sample heroes and just tweak them a little bit to fit their needs. So it can definitely make the barrier of entry lower, and I think anything that can do that helps. Along that line too, this is kind of a little slight thorn too, but also kind of this is a thorny bud, I'll say. Uh, bring if you want to get into Mutants and Masterminds, especially if you're going to be a game master for the table, buy Mutants and Masterminds 3E's Powers edition. I think it's just called Powers. Powers, what that has is it goes over. It doesn't bring any new powers in, to the best of my knowledge, but it goes over the frequent combinations of different powers, attributes, and traits to build kind of the standard superhero powers you'd expect. So they've got them broken out by the type of hero, like if you wanted to be a psychic hero, a powerhouse, an ice or elemental hero. They go through and they break out the powers, the combinations for both attack, defense, flight, movement, all of that. And they go over how to stat them, the points they would cost, and how to build everything out. So really, it's worth it for me. Initially, I didn't think it would be. I was kind of in my ignorance with the system. I'm like, oh, I don't need that. It's all the same stuff in the core rule book. It's not. Oh, it is, but it's arrayed in a way that'll make it easier for your players to understand it as well as your game masters to understand it too. It makes it easy too if you're building an enemy too, just to go through and okay, I want that, that, and that. Point total, good to go. So highly recommended. I almost bundle those two together if you're jumping into the system. Those are the two most important books by far. Okay, so last two thorns on this side. This one's like kind of a. This one depends on your table how big it'll be. It's a thorn I have to acknowledge. I've never had the problem at my table. My players are usually pretty respectful of it, but this system is very easy to break it if you try. I tell players this right before we build a new PC that this isn't like a system where it's like, oh, cool, you broke it. That took some effort. This system, if you want to break it, you could break it without too much effort. And with this, especially for me, I try to tell narrative stories using 3E, and I think trying to break it will do yourself, your table, and everyone on that a disservice. So just game masters know going in, tell your players that, especially if they're coming from 5e, even Pathfinder mentality, where kind of getting that most optimal combination can be the go-to. Break them out of that, have them build a concept, and then build from the concept. And don't try to have them build like a Superman that's just completely invulnerable, invincible across the board with one really rare weakness that doesn't come up. So just take that into effect and make sure your players are aware of that and make sure that your kind of players, you and your players are on the same page for the type of game and story you want to tell. And the last one, this one's a minor one, but I've got this from my players, and sometimes I agree a little bit too. But sometimes the powers and effects can feel a little bit samey. Um, they can have a very versatile array of building out all of these powers and systems and making them all kind of feel fleshed out, especially if you're kind of using a narrative style. But unfortunately, they have certain effects, and usually those effects will kind of fall in line with the ranged attack, and they're going to have similar effects. Psychic with Willow saves are going to have similar effects there. But they all kind of have different flavor. You can have different attributes and things tagged onto them. It's what I don't agree with a ton, but I've heard people say it and definitely wanted to bring that in there as well. I think you could definitely, especially build it out with different attributes and pieces to stand your PC out, especially with some of the different things they have to enhance or to kind of differentiate your power there. But definitely something to keep in mind as you're going through. But overall, this was kind of I was happy to be able to come back to this one. It was really kind of took me by surprise. I'd never done a review for Mutants and Masterminds, and I'm happy it was my 100th video because I really owe a lot to this system for kind of really getting me to branch into the wider world of TTRPGs outside of the D&D shadow. So huge love of this one. It's definitely going to be one that's always my favorite to pick up and play, especially to tell some comic book stories. But definitely, if you haven't played Mutants and Masterminds before, drop something that you're curious about in the comments. If you have played before, drop something that you love about the system down below. Definitely check out. I'll make sure we link them in there. Some of our other videos on Mutants and Masterminds. We've got a couple actual plays in there too, so you can see how the system feels live in action. But yeah, definitely check that out, and then make sure May. This is May, and May is our Champions Game of the Month. Another superhero system. So check us out tomorrow or Saturday. We're going to be building a PC utilizing that system, and we're going to be doing more throughout the month for the live actual play May 25th. That Thursday at 7 p.m., we'll be giving away a free PDF copy of the system. So make sure to check that out. And the next time, folks.